Okay, so I believe we're about here last time. So, like I say, I carried on and finished the one that we were doing last week. So that's kind of where I took it to. So we're just gonna go over like adding the grips, doing the shading for the cap and the mouthpiece, putting the logo on, putting some highlights and finishing touches and those kind of things. So I suppose the first bit is adding the grips to it. What we do to do that is we use the pen tool just to draw the first grip. So if I just zoom in, you can see the kind of contours of the grip detail. So it kind of, this one starts about there. The offset isn't even. They get closer and closer as they're kind of wrapping around the back of the bottle, but they generally kind of follow this curve here. So we can just draw those in with a pen tool, like so. So first one kind of starts about here, curves around to here. Is an offset of that radius by about that much, and then kind of finishes about there. That might be a bit long. I'll just double check it against the reference. That's about right. That offset isn't quite right, so we can just use the Convert Entities tool at the bottom of the pen tool tab. If I click and hold it, click on the shape, we'll zoom in a little bit, and then we can just see, and we can just tidy that shape up. So move that over a little bit. I might redo that handle so it's just got a bit better flow to it. Looks about right. So I've just got that path there. Go on the Paths tab. I save that path because we'll use that. And then what we want to do is just stroke that path with a black brush. So got your brush set to black. Go on your brush. Obviously, you would set the size of your brush, which wants to be about 10 pixels, like so. So we can just check that against our reference image. That's about the width of those, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe 8. I could just type it in, or I'll just like mess about with it like this. We'll go 7. Then with our pen tool selected, we want to add a layer on top of that shape. Well, and then we just right click and stroke that path with, make sure the brush tool selected, hit OK, and that just draws that path in. Then to do the next one, all we do is go on our Paths tab, that path that we just saved, right click it and go duplicate path. And then you can press free transform, Control T, and then we can just move that over and then adjust it to kind of suit the pattern we're going for with the Convert Entities tool. Hold Control, oops, click off it, click it. So all these are white, and then we kind of hold Control, if I can actually get the point, there we go. And bring that point down a little bit and move just these 2 points over a little, like so. You see the angle, this angle and that angle change as the grip moves across the bottle. So we're just doing that. It's almost like an arrow shape. So we're just adjusting it accordingly to give us the shape that we want. And then you can just, we're working on the same layer every time, but you can just stroke that path again. right click. If you've got your brush tool selected, right click, stroke path about the 6th one down. You see? Have you got your brush, your pen tool active? Sorry. Yeah, you have to have your pen tool active. Yeah. I won't do them all. I'll just do 3, just so you can see. So I just do that again, duplicate it again. Control T to move it over. And then just adjust it with the convert entities. And I'll just do that final one. Like so. So I've got those 3 in there. Should look something like that. And then just to give those some form, if you double click that layer that they're all on, and then that brings up the layer effects, and we click bevel emboss, set to inner bevel. I've reduced the depth so it's not quite so bold. Mine's at 50%. Size is at 9 pixels, and I've got the light just coming from the right. You can tweak the light source. Make sure that the global light, use global light is unchecked, because otherwise it adjusts all your layers. And then we just adjust the angle by clicking in this circle to say where the light's coming from. You can see it's updating the little preview box to kind of get, we just want to be catching the edge of those. Like so. Well, I got it to, I think it's 30 degrees. Minus 30, sorry. And it just catches the underside edge and the back edge of those grips to just give them a bit of shape. I'll just pause it.
So, yeah, I just on deleting the part.
It's deleting the path.
So, deleting the part.
What's it deleting? Backspace on this. So you just have to control click the path.
Control.
Path tab.
Oh,
Path. There's the little.
this is
You can do.
no. I'm working out the wrong way.
Yeah, do them right there. There you go.
Thank you.
You okay? Pardon? Click on your path tab. Control click that. The box, the grey box. Control click it. Hit C. Be on the right layer. Mine should be on the arm and equals there we go. Okay. So what we're going to do is add some shading to that to describe the form of it. So if kind of just hit record. So now we're going to add some lowlights to the cap. So I've renamed my cap layer, add a layer. I've control click the cap layer to make the selection, and then we're just going to add some shading that follows the shading of the bottle. So a bit down the left hand side, down the right hand side like so. Then I'll make my brush a bit smaller and do this back edge like that. So we're just kind of describing the form of the cap like so. And then I'll just add another layer, and we've got a middle low light that runs straight down the bottle. So we just line our brush up with that, hold shift and draw a line straight in. I did that on a different layer because then we can just adjust the opacity to just soften that one off a little bit. So then we've got our shading on a cap, and we can just tweak the opacity of both layers just to kind of get it looking similar to our reference image. So I just want to knock those back a little bit, like 10-15%. So then what we're going to do is put these 3 highlights on, and like I say, they're just continuations from the bottle itself. So working on top of those 2 layers that we just did, add a layer, and what we're going to do is just draw those in with a pen tool, because that will just help us align them with the ones on the bottle. That's the right buttons. So I'll zoom in, you'll see what I'm talking about. So this highlight just continues up, and then it kind of domes off and then comes back down, and it's all in line with this highlight on the back. So if I just click here, draw a straight line up, select the midpoint and drag the handles out to give it that little bit of domeness to the top. Add another point and then bring it down and close it off like so. And I'll just tweak that slightly by pulling out the handles just to give it just to round that dome off a little bit. So you should have a shape that looks like that. You can see how that continues up. Then we can convert that path to a selection by control clicking it, and then we just want to fill that with white, making sure you're on a new layer. Like so. So you can see that just continues up onto the cap. But then if we look at our reference image, because it's the cap's got this like sparked finish to it, all the highlights are really diffused. They kind of blend out a lot. So what we'll do is just blur that with Gaussian blur like we normally do. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then we want to blur it quite a lot, so like 20 pixels. Yeah, that's all right, 25, 20. And then just adjust the opacity to get it looking like the highlights that are on our reference image. And then we just rinse and repeat that for the other 2. So this one's a slightly different shape because that cap kind of curves around here. So we'll just do a shape that follows that kind of highlighted edge, where if I just show you over here. So we want to draw a shape like this. So I'll just do those quickly. add a new layer, which is going to be our fill layer. Use the pen tool. It's a continuation of this highlight, so it's just going straight up from that point. So if you hold shift, that'll draw a straight line, vertical. Dome the top, click our second point, hold shift, draw a straight line down, and then close it off like so. And then we can just zoom in and tweak that. I'll come around in a sec once I've just done these ones. So control, move those points up and adjust the shape. Like so. Select it, invert it for me, and then I'll just fill it. Oh, filled the wrong side. And then because if I just do the deselection, we've already set the blur up for this one, so you just go filter and the blur will be at the top to reapply the same settings. And if you want to apply the same opacity settings, you can just right click the previous layer, copy layer style, and then paste the layer style onto the layer we've just done, and that adjusts the opacity to match this one. I will just pause it there. So just do the last highlight that follows this. It's got a little bit of curvature, and then the cap, the back of the mouthpiece kind of blends into the cap that gives us this kind of shape. So I just kind of emulate that when I'm drawing it in with a pen tool, the highlight, because the highlights and lowlights just kind of describe the form of the bottle. So if I just do that, like that. So I want it to be that kind of shape. Just convert entities. That a little bit more curvature, and that, curve that in a little bit, like so. Add a layer, make the selection. Will that fill the right way? Hopefully. Yeah. And then just blur that again using the same settings, and then we can still paste our layer settings onto that. So there, we've got our kind of highlights and lowlights of the main form of the cap, and then what we want to do is put this edge highlight in that runs down there and then blends out. So again, we just draw that with a pen tool, add a layer, kind of click where we want it to start, where that transition begins, where that radius goes, like so, and then how it kind of runs out, like so, and then adjust that. So we've got it so it swoops around that corner of the cap like that. Can't remember if I added a layer. Yeah, I did. And then what we'll do is just stroke that with a white brush. So just set a brush up. We could just hover over it with our brush to see if it's the right size, checking it against our reference image. So about 15 pixels, I think. Maybe a little bit bigger, 20. 20 looks about right, yeah. And then we can just stroke a path with that brush that we've just set up, like so. Deselect our path. And then if I kind of zoom out, you can see ours isn't quite diffuse enough, or it isn't spread. It's quite a defined highlight that we've done. So you can just blur that to suit it, using the Gaussian blur. Too much. That 8 pixels kind of looks about right. And then all we do is just select our rubber, set to quite big, and we just feather it out so for where it runs out. That gives us that kind of that highlight that runs across the top of the bottle. Ours is quite still a little bit bold, so we can just adjust the opacity, and all those highlights kind of blend into each other. I can see a bit of it with my orange shape, so I can just use that. Just cut that or delete that from that highlight I've just put in. So it should look something like that. Then if you look, it's kind of right next to it, we've got like a black low light next to that highlight. So to do that, all we do, duplicate that highlight that we've just done, move the copy behind it, press Ctrl U for hue saturation, adjust the lightness to black, and then just move that down slightly, so that gives us that little bit of black edge underneath that highlight. And adjust your opacity. And we just want to rub out the bits that we don't want. So up here. You can see that just puts in that little bit of a black edge running around below the highlight. So that should be most of it done. I'll just pause for a second. So just like finishing touches really. If we find our cap layer, which I actually call cap, we want to give it a bit of a sparked finish. So we'll just duplicate your cap layer, just so you've got the original for reference. And then select it, so control click it, like so. And then we go filter, and everything's grayed out for some reason. Why is it all grayed out? Oh, because I haven't got the layer selected. There we go. Then we'll go filter, and then we'll just add some noise to it. So filter noise, add noise. I've got it set to like no, not 20%. Got it set to uniform, and got it set to about like 5%, and that just gives it a bit of texture to the lid to suggest that spark finish. Five-ish. but then because we've got the duplicate behind it, we can just fine tune it by just adjusting the opacity to kind of just knock that. So you just got a bit of noise just to give it a bit of a sparked effect to that lid, to the lid.
To add layer.
I just duplicated the cap layer, so the one that you've got the grey, just the grey fill on, and then you can just see it adds little bit of noise to the highlights, just so it looks like it's got a bit of a spark finish to it. You can do the same to the fill layer, although it didn't like it when I did it earlier. Is that my fill layer? No, that's my fill layer. I did call it fill, didn't I? Yeah. I don't know if you have to make the selection, I'll just check. Yeah, for some reason it's not doing it down all the bottle, I don't know why. Oh, we won't do that. Then what we can do, if I zoom out a bit, we can put a logo on it. So go online, find a logo. I didn't want to click on it, go back. Copy an image. Paste that on. Make sure it's at the top. It's good to get a nice clean logo if you can. So we don't want the white. So what we'll do is just adjust the layer blend where it says normal. If you click that, set it to multiply. So then that just applies the logo. You can, if you want to, we can curve the logo a little bit. So if you press Ctrl T, you'll go to edit free transform. Then right click, go to warp. Where it says warp custom, if you click on that, go cylindrical, then you can curve the logo to the shape of the bottle by adjusting these handles. Just to give it a bit of curvature so it looks like it's kind of wrapping around the bottle a little bit. And just knock it back a little bit. Also, so our colours are like, don't pop quite as much. It's a little bit washed out compared to this one. So what we can do there is, if you just click on it's like a circle where it's half black and white, click on that and add an adjustment layer, and we'll go to curves, and then you can adjust the curves to tweak your oranges and tweak your highlights just to kind of make your image pop a bit more, like so. Obviously you can play with those. And we got 10 minutes. So I did that. These like little brush strokes, like pencil lines, I've just done by stroking a path, and then I've just put some little edge highlights on. What is quite nice is if we go to these highlights here, this one running on the chamfer, so you can just right click on, like hover over the bit you want to edit and right click, and it brings up all the layers that you're over. So we can duplicate those. If we duplicate them twice, oops, like so, and hide the original. set the bottom one to overlay in the layer blends, and then the top one we just go in with a eraser and just erase this kind of back edge, and then it just gives you that kind of yellow transition to the highlights, gives a bit of color into your highlights that makes them look a bit more realistic. You can do the same for this one on the back here. So just duplicate that one twice. Set the bottom one to overlay, and then just rub a bit away of the top one. And it gives you that kind of where the colour's burnt in a little bit in the on the bottle, so it looks just that little bit of extra detail. You can put an edge highlight running across here where the bottle curves under the cap, so you can put like a shadow and a highlight just to kind of give you that detail. And also what we can do is just click our top layer and then go all the way down to our first layer above the shape, put that in a folder, so we've got them all in the folder. Duplicate that folder and then merge it, and then we just press Ctrl T and we can flip that vertically and then move it down. It's not going to be a perfect reflection, but we just kind of put it generally where we want it. Put it behind our bottle group, like so. And then just use our rubber. Well, if we just adjust the opacity of it to knock it back. And then get rid of the bits that we don't want. And then just blur it a little bit. We can also just hide that layer. We can do a layer, an orange layer on top of our background layer, and fill that with our orange colour. And then double click that, and we can add a gradient behind it, like so. Just to finish things off.